5:10. Now, hundreds of members of the Merseyside-based Rights for Residents campaign group have been in Downing Street today calling for an end to limits on the access residents in care homes can have to their families. The protest was led by the West End actress Ruthie Henshall, whose petition on this has been supported by 250,000 people. Well, Diane Mayhew is the co-founder of the Merseyside campaign group. We spoke to her on breakfast and we can now find out from her how the day went. Hi, Diane. How's it been today?
Hi, Claire. It's been an amazing day. We had Rights for Residents merchandise, so everybody turned up in their T-shirts, which it's been a red hot day, all with Rights for Residents on. So we had a sea of blue. Liz Kendall, Shadow Care Minister for Labour, helped us to hand in the petition. Ruthie Henshall, as you know, came and she was very, very emotional because, of course, she'd lost a mother, as have we. And it's now we're asking for Gloria's law. So it's been bittersweet, to be honest, Claire, because we've never met our members before. So everybody wanted to know, the co-founders of Rights for Residents. But, of course, so many people that did turn up have actually lost someone in care who have died alone.
It's been the toughest of times for you and your relatives. And as you mentioned, whilst the campaign's gone on, many people have lost the relative that they were campaigning to be able to see. So it must be really, really tough. But also at last you can meet each other, which you haven't been able to do. So that must have been something special.
It was and it is, but that's the irony, isn't it? That everybody else in society can just go about the business now. There are no restrictions whatsoever. And yet these poor people who live in care have nothing to look forward to. They can't look forward to going on holiday or, not that they want to go to a festival. But there are young people that are in care as well. And I think sometimes the public forget that. People that are disabled or have learning difficulties. I found out only last week that a girl that I was in class with is about to go into a nursing home next week. She's my age. She's 56. So, this could literally happen to anybody at any time. Nobody knows when illness is going to strike and when it could be your turn to be in one of these homes. And, what I would say to your listeners, Claire, is how would you like it if all you had was a tiny room and no visitors from the people that you really wanted to see the most? We've had husbands parted from wives, mothers from sons and daughters, parents from children. It's huge. We actually had some MPs arrive down today and I was chatting to someone and they don't even realise this is happening because restrictions have been lifted for everybody else. They assumed that it was the same for care homes and it's not.
So tell us what the situation is then, Diane, because I'm sure there are, like those MPs, plenty of people listening to this who'd say, well, hang on a minute, things are, moving forward and we can do what we like and see who we like and go where we like. Surely that's the same across all parts of society, but you know that it's not.
It's not. And I think, there are some really good care homes that are actually allowing it. And so it begs the question, if they can do it and do it safely and see relatives as a help, rather than a hindrance, then why can't it be done across the board? And, these people, certainly the elderly who are living in care homes, they're living on borrowed time. They've lost 18 months already. They're coming to the end of their life right now, and they're still being kept separated from the family.
So what's the guidance or the law then, Diane? Are care homes obliged now to let in visitors, or is it down to their discretion, or what is the situation?
Yeah, it is down to the manager's discretion, but the guidance strongly advises that as well as named visitors, so the wider family can visit, that every resident can nominate an essential visitor because they recognise that during the first lockdown, people suffered terribly, deterioration, and their mental health and well-being through loneliness and isolation. So the government have acknowledged that, and they have said that every resident can have this essential visitor who has a unique relationship with them and a shared history to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, it's advisory, not mandatory. And so some are offering it and some are not. And what we're saying is that the advisory tactic hasn't worked. So unless we get a legal right, then more people are going to die having had no meaningful contact with those that they hold, dear. And it's excruciating. I mean, can you imagine that if your listeners just close their eyes for a minute and just conjure up the person that they are closest to, who they love the most, then all of a sudden that person's taken away and put into a home and you can't see them. Honestly, unless you've been in this situation and directly affected, I don't think people can possibly understand not just how it affects the mental health and well-being of the person in the home, but also the people who are closest to them. We've had a lady today, and she can't see her husband. It was his birthday. They won't let her in. It's just unbelievable.
And so today, just tell us about what you've done. You've been to Downing Street. Just talk us through what's happened.
Yeah, so we arrived at Downing Street at 12 o'clock. There was a lot of press there, BBC and, lots of others as well, Daily Mail, Daily Express, and they're all interviewing Jenny and myself and Ruthie and some of our members to get case studies about what was happening to them personally. Then we handed the petition in. As I said, Liz Kendall did that with us. And as you know, it's about 250,000 signatures that we've got. We all had placards, we had banners. People were in tears. Just that this felt, I think, like this was something they could do because they're powerless to, affect change in their own home. And do you know what astounds me, Claire, is that Boris Johnson's talking about fixing social care. But unless they fix this issue, it's also going to have an impact on funding because I know somebody who wanted to come today, but she lost her mum in a care home and her dad's now ill and she said there's no way he's going in a care home. I'm going to look after him. And it's a massive responsibility when someone needs 24-hour nursing care, but that's the way it's going. There's a growing reluctance to place someone in a care home because they know that they've got no human rights.
So what are you asking the government to do and what do you think the response is going to be?
Oh, it's a big question. What we're asking the government to do is to implement Gloria's law, which means that, as the guidance suggests, that every resident can nominate an essential carer who can go in under any circumstances, even during an outbreak. And the guidance advises that now, but we want that to be a legal right to stop these care providers who are just refusing point blank to do it. And let's face it, Claire, as cases rise in the community, we're going to go back to square one in lockdown. And if somebody hasn't got that essential status, they won't be allowed in. We also want them to lift all restrictions for people who live in care, as they have done in society, because it's disproportionate. You cannot exclude a group of people just because they're unfortunate enough to live in care. And I think, when you consider that these were the first group of people to be doubly vaccinated, relatives can take tests now. There are no other precautions coming our way. This is it. This is as good as it gets. So what's the alternative? Just lock them up forever? It's just awful. And we want them to mandate the guidance so that, like I said, advice is not trying to advise these care rooms isn't working, so they need to make it legal.
And when do you think you might get a response? Obviously, you've got some MPs advocating for you, Liz Kendall among them. But what do you think?
Oh, it's a long shot, isn't it? I mean, we're very hopeful because the amount of people that were there today, all with the placards and banners, and, we've certainly made our voices heard for those who can't be heard. But we don't know. We'll be chasing it up, let's put it that way. But that's all I can tell you right now, Claire.
And what about for you, Diane, personally? Because you must be, as well as the adrenaline of today, you must be absolutely exhausted, because I know we've spoken to you on Radio Merseyside a lot. You've been pushing and pushing for this. It must have taken its toll on you.
I think what's taken its toll is that we've lost the person that we started Rights for Residents for. as have Ruthie, you know, and she was such a character and such a force in our lives, and she's gone. And we still haven't grieved for her because we'd already arranged the protest and we didn't want to let other people down. And we have to carry on fighting for those that are still here. But it has taken its toll because we are exhausted and we're extremely emotional, you know. But I just want your listeners and anybody else who's not aware of this scandal to try and help us solve this issue because, like I say, you know, illness doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody at any time, and they too could find themselves in a care home tomorrow, next week. You know, we just don't know. So, you know, that's where we're at the moment. We are exhausted. I think Jenny and I have not slept for a week, just worrying about this protest, planning it, hoping that the people that said they'd turn up would turn up, all the mechanics of it and the logistics, and I'll sleep tonight.
I hope you do, Diane. Listen, thank you so much for speaking to us this afternoon. I'm sure we'll catch up again, and we'll obviously watch what happens in terms of any sort of government response and any sort of legislation that comes in as a result of your protest, the campaign and the petition. Thank you so much. That's Diane Mayhew, who is one of the founder members of the Merseyside-based Rights for Residents campaign group, speaking to us from London. They've been in Downing Street, as she said, today to hand in that petition and send a very strong message of the strength of feeling of the loved ones of people in care homes to the government.